You think you know Georges St-Pierre, the undefeated legend, the GSP, who dominated the UFC welterweight division for years. To many, he represents perfection inside the octagon, flawless technique, unmatched strategy, and the discipline of a true martial artist. He was the face of Canadian MMA, a hero to millions and a symbol of what dedication can achieve. But behind the trophies, behind the calm and composed public persona, lies a story most fans never hear. What Georges endured mentally, what he sacrificed physically, and what he still wrestles with today, it's heartbreaking, human, and rarely told. In this video, we peel back the armor and show you the untold story of GSP, the pain behind the smiles, the battles beyond the octagon, and the man behind the legend. Stay with me, because this is not just about fights and titles. This is about life itself. From a young boy in Saint-Isidore, Quebec, Georges St-Pierre's journey was anything but smooth. Born in 1981, he grew up in a modest family with no privilege or safety net. In school, he was not the confident figure the world would later know. Instead, he was a shy, vulnerable boy who was targeted by bullies almost every day. They stole his clothes, mocked his accent, and shattered his self-esteem. These experiences didn't just bruise his body. They left deep emotional scars that he carried for years. To defend himself and regain a sense of control, he began training in karate at the age of 7. What started as a desperate attempt to survive slowly became a burning passion that defined his entire future. George has said many times that martial arts was more than just a sport. It was his therapy. In the dojo, he found a world where discipline and respect replaced fear and humiliation. Every kick, every punch, every stance allowed him to channel his aggression, his frustration, and his sadness into something constructive. Over time, he discovered not only physical strength, but also inner balance. Martial arts gave him a purpose, a way to transform suffering into power, and a path to fight his own demons. Without it, he admits, his life could have gone in a very different direction. That background of insecurity, the fear of humiliation, the trauma of being powerless, never fully left him. Even at the very top of the UFC, when he was celebrated as one of the greatest fighters in the world, he still carried those emotional scars. The public saw a champion with ice-cold composure. But inside, Georges battled feelings of doubt and emptiness. In interviews, he has spoken candidly about struggles with mental health, about nights of anxiety and depression that followed his biggest victories. After his controversial win over Johnny Hendricks in 2013, when most expected him to celebrate, he instead confessed to feeling hollow and unbalanced. Despite the belts, the fame, and the recognition, he felt an emptiness that success couldn't fill. One of the most revealing aspects of GSP's story is his openness about obsessive-compulsive disorder. He has admitted that his OCD both fueled his greatness and created his suffering. That relentless drive to perfect every technique, to drill every movement thousands of times, to leave no detail unchecked. It made him one of the most dominant fighters in history. But it also drained him mentally. Training camps became cycles of obsession, leaving little space for rest, joy, or spontaneity. The same qualities that built a champion also weighed heavily on his emotional state. And Georges has never been afraid to acknowledge that paradox. The physical side of MMA demanded absolutely everything from Georges St-Pierre. For years, he fought in some of the most grueling, high-stakes matchups that the sport had ever seen. Legendary wars against Matt Hughes, Carlos Condit, Matt Serra, and BJ Penn. Each fight pushed him to the edge of his endurance, both physically and mentally. These weren't just battles inside a cage. They were defining moments where he tested the very limits of his body and spirit. Fans admired his dominance, his discipline, and his strategic brilliance, but few truly understood the cost. Every camp brought brutal sparring sessions, injuries that lingered, and pain that followed him long after the crowd's cheers had faded. Georges himself admitted that being at the top felt less like glory and more like constant survival, living in a cycle of pressure, expectation, and physical suffering. In 2007, Georges faced one of the most shocking and humbling moments of his entire career. His loss to Matt Serra is remembered as one of the biggest upsets in MMA history. Overnight, the invincible champion was humanized. His aura of dominance cracked in front of millions. That defeat didn't just bruise his body, it cut deeply into his identity. For Georges, it was more than losing a fight. It was confronting the reality that all of his discipline and preparation could still collapse in a single moment. Instead of destroying him, though, this loss forced him to rebuild from the ground up. He analyzed what went wrong, corrected his weaknesses, and approached his craft with even greater focus. Later, when he avenged that loss, it wasn't just redemption in the cage, it was proof of his resilience, his ability to turn pain into progress. Yet, even after reclaiming his throne, he admitted that scars from that night never truly disappeared. They remained a reminder of how fragile greatness can be. As time marched on, even a legend like GSP had to contend with the realities of aging. His body, once a machine of precision and endurance, began to show the wear of decades spent in combat. Training no longer felt the same. Recovery took longer. Injuries lingered harder. He spoke honestly about the toll the sport had taken, and by 2024, he publicly announced what many fans feared: that the door to a competitive comeback was now closed. He admitted candidly that his body just can't keep up anymore. For years, there had been speculation of him stepping into one last fight, or at least a grappling supermatch. But reality caught up. The injuries, the aches, the risk of pushing too far, it was no longer sustainable. For someone who had always been honest about mental and physical balance, it was a bittersweet but necessary acceptance. Yet Georges did not walk away from fighting into silence. Instead, he chose to transform his legacy into something new. Retirement wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of another chapter. By 2025, GSP was already pivoting into projects far beyond the cage. One of the most meaningful is his collaboration on a children's book aimed at addressing bullying, a topic that shaped his own childhood. Drawing directly from his painful experiences of being bullied, humiliated, and feeling powerless, Georges is determined to give something back to the next generation. His goal is simple but powerful: to show children who feel small and voiceless that they can rise, that they can build confidence, and that empathy and resilience can change their lives. In many ways, this project represents a full circle for him. The bullied boy from Quebec, now using his voice to protect and inspire others who walk the same path he once did. He's also become one of the most important voices for mental health in the world of combat sports. For years, fighters were expected to hide their vulnerabilities, to project only toughness and invincibility. Georges broke that pattern. He has shared publicly that many people, including elite athletes, struggle silently, trapped by the idea that success or fame somehow shields them from pain. He's admitted that at times he felt lost, anxious, even depressed, despite standing on top of the world. To him, martial arts wasn't just a way to win titles. It was literally the thing that saved him, a structure that gave him purpose when he could have spiraled into despair. That message, that greatness and suffering can coexist, has inspired countless fans who once thought they were alone in their struggles. His physical health reveals another side of the story. For all his strength, GSP is not invincible. He suffers from ulcerative colitis, a serious and chronic inflammatory condition that affects the digestive system. At first, the symptoms were terrifying. He's described moments during fight camps when crippling stomach pain left him doubled over, unable to focus, fearing the worst. At times, he thought it could even be cancer. The diagnosis of ulcerative colitis forced Georges to completely change his approach to life, not just as an athlete, but as a human being. He adopted intermittent fasting, carefully timed meals, and integrated fermented foods into his diet. He eliminated anything that could trigger flare-ups and became far stricter with his nutrition than ever before. For fans, it was shocking to imagine that the seemingly unbreakable champion was fighting battles inside his own body, sometimes even during his most iconic performances. It's a reminder that beneath the armor, even legends carry hidden pain. What makes Georges unique is how he transformed those struggles into purpose. Through it all, his public image has shifted dramatically. He is no longer remembered only as the fighter who was almost invincible. Instead, he has evolved into a symbol of principles, mental depth, empathy, and reflection. His work extends beyond the octagon. He supports anti-bullying initiatives, not only through words but through action. He even founded the GSP Foundation, dedicated to encouraging youth participation in sports and helping young people who face invisible battles of their own. Georges believes that the discipline and confidence learned through martial arts can protect kids from the same pain he endured as a bullied child in Quebec. In every interview, his passion for this mission is evident. It's not a publicity stunt, it's a life calling. In media appearances now, his focus has shifted. Where once he broke down fight strategies and discussed rivals, today he speaks about balance, meaning, and purpose. He talks about the importance of serving something bigger than yourself, about how real strength is found not in domination, but in overcoming the unseen battles of life. Georges St-Pierre's life after the cage has, in many ways, become even more compelling than the fight nights that made him famous. The wisdom he shares comes from scars, both physical and emotional, and that's what makes his words resonate so deeply with audiences worldwide. Yet even with all the respect he's earned, Georges has kept his humility intact. He openly acknowledges regrets about his earlier years, specifically the silence he kept around his mental health. For a long time, he carried shame about admitting his struggles, afraid it would be seen as weakness. Today, he sees things differently. He recognizes that by sharing his story, he can help others who are living through the same battles. He understands the responsibility that comes with his platform, and he is determined to use it not just to inspire, but to heal. It takes courage to fight in a cage, but perhaps even greater courage to admit your pain to the world. And that's the heart of the untold story of Georges St-Pierre. It isn't about secret scandals or hidden controversies. It's something much deeper and far more human. It's about a life marked by early fear, by the constant fight against mental battles no one else could see, by sacrifices hidden behind the glamour of championship belts, and by the evolution of purpose that carried him far beyond the octagon. Yes, Georges was a champion, one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. But more importantly, he is a man who continues to wrestle with his mind, his body, and his legacy. What really breaks your heart is realizing that behind the trophies and the glory was always a boy who just wanted to belong, a human being who carried burdens that most of us could never imagine. And that is why his story matters. It shows us that even legends are fragile, even heroes are human, and even the strongest among us sometimes fight the hardest battles in silence. So, if this story moved you, drop a like, subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of legends, and let me know in the comments. Which part surprised you the most about GSP's journey? Was it the boy bullied in Quebec, the champion who hid his anxiety, or the man today who turns pain into purpose? Whatever it was, remember this: Georges St-Pierre's legacy is not just what he did in the cage. It's how he chose to live beyond it.